Wow. Did you bring a theremin to a Zoom jam?
Hells yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was fanfare for the uncommon man.
You told me about that beat, Trav, and I programmed it, but I couldn't get it to change to 12, so I was almost texted you. The shuffle is in 16, but I figured it's funnier if you didn't know.
It's not like I can get it to line up anyway.
Right. What are we doing? Wow, that was pretty cool, though.
So
It's a theremin.
Theremin, yes.
Wow.
Little known fact: the same theremin used by Jen Majura on the Evanescence orchestral tour for 2 years.
That's cool.
So that's Jen has a fire. She has a theremin.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of crazy production going on, and Dale has iPhone, and he's in a library.
Right. We are all in outer space right now.
Actually, I think you're in outer space. Can you make a little more outer space noise?
Sure.
Right. I know.
Is that just ready to go?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like that'll be next week.
Yeah.
Because they do, on New Year's, they always do the big Twilight Zone marathon on Sci-Fi Network.
It's
all right. I'll be distracted with this all night. Thank you.
It's great.
You have working on ideas for the next record, which.
Well, it was like you were in a. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Apparently, we're going to have some theremin on the next album.
It's all cozy there with the fireplace, but for a second it was like you're in a psychedelic hell with flames behind you and theremin music.
Jen's back there with her spacey Rod Serling noises going.
Well, happy holidays, guys.
I got a message from Jerry that says Dale's shirt is perfect.
Needs no explanation to anybody who's met me for more than 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, anyone that knows Dale. Welcome, everybody. We are the Travis Larson Band. This is Outside the Inn, number 38, because we skipped 1 week. It would be 39, but we did that. I did that Can't Stop the Blues jam that 1 week. So it's actually, when we get done with this, next week will be actually 40 weeks of shows. But you guys got 1 day off. So welcome. I hope everybody had a good Christmas yesterday. It's kind of like a Christmas weekend, really. And apparently Jen has a big, beautiful fireplace. And Jen actually does have a big, beautiful fireplace, but somehow it looks like she's sitting inside this one.
I know. It's hot in here. My word. Oh.
And Clarence just got his wings. Everybody?
Yeah, that was you, actually. Who texted?
That's Clarence getting his wings. I don't know. Hey, everybody. I see Goober. I see Glenn. A lot of questions early on asking if that was a theremin.
If somebody says, is it Uma theremin?
Not bad.
That's not bad, right?
These are the jokes, folks. So, quick show and tell.
I do have a Christmas joke.
You have a Christmas joke already?
Well, we were just talking about these are the jokes, folks.
Okay, well, go ahead.
What did Adam say on the day before Christmas? It's Christmas Eve.
Hey, that's kind of a theremin.
That was actually the button that says symbol. So that's their idea of a symbol.
That's a symbol. That's a symbol of what?
Right? It's a symbol of a groan. That was not that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still getting my devices together here, but I very, very quickly, because I had to reconfigure some things right before the show, because for Christmas yesterday, I got myself finally an adjustable official light that you would use for a show such as this, right?
Nice.
Like it's got cold, but it's kind of off to one side. So this side over here, that's I've got another light over here that's not the special light. It's just adding some light to this side, so I'm not all shadows. But this light here has adjustments where you can make it cold or warm, and I do all that, except I can't reach the controls yet because I didn't have time to deal with it really. It's behind the screen.
I got one of those, but I had to put it behind my computer because I had crazy rings in my glasses.
Yeah, mine doesn't have rings. Mine's actually like a strip.
Okay, well, either way, I would have crazy strip lights. I would have lights in my glasses. So
if I had
to solve this.
So I have an adjustable strip where you can make it warm or you can make it cold, and you can raise and lower. So if I look particularly fantastic tonight, it's because I have this new light from my brother and my sister-in-law.
Nice.
Aww, nice.
And, we'll think about whether you look particularly fantastic. We'll get back to you.
Right. And if I look too well lit, then it's their fault. So if you don't really want to see all this. So this week, moving on to the next album, after we get through a few other things, but I was going to mention we are going to talk about Annika tonight, which is the last official release of Travis Larson Band before the next one that apparently is going to be a theremin record.
You're right.
And so I had discussions today with my friend Jen Majura, the other friend named Jen, and because I've had this dream for years. I've talked about this with you, Jen, and also Jennifer Batten, where I said you and Jennifer Batten need to find a really great drummer named Jen, and we just call the band Jen. That's it, right? But you get like a super rock solid band called Jen,
and you should play music in the Jen style. Am I pronouncing that right? There's a style of Jen, right?
Oh, I don't know. Is that a thing? You're the teacher.
It's a style of metal. Somebody tell me if I'm right, but yeah, there's a style of metal called Jen because it's named after the
because it goes Jen.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. Wow, that seems a little too obvious.
Gent.
So you should get a record in that style.
Evidently.
What's that, Jen?
It's J-E-N-T. Gent.
Oh, great. Yes, I knew that. Now I remember that.
That's like a whole different thing. That's actually like a male thing, except spelled wrong.
Yeah.
Right. G-E, right.
Yes.
Right. Anyway,
top hats.
So I have this dream that I'm going to put together a super group called Jen, and now that Jen has a theremin, and if we got Jen Majura could play rhythm guitar and sing, and now it could be a vocal band too. Originally I was thinking like this crazy instrumental fusion band, but now it could be like a crazy progressive like metal fusion thing with vocals. And then at some point the two Jens have a theremin duel in the show, right? Or maybe harmonizing theremins, which is impossible. So that would be like a lot of fun to try and, you'd be like virtuoso theremin players.
Yeah, you'd have to be.
So everybody look forward to this at the next X Jam in 2022.
Raleigh made a hell gent for leather joke. He wrote hell gent for ...
Oh, hell gent for, right.
So yeah, the more gens you line up for this thing and still don't have a drummer, the more pressure there is on this eventual Jennifer drummer.
Right.
There's gonna be 11 people waiting for her to play some drums.
We'll just need some like Joe.
Drummer. It's gonna be a super group full of gens. So what's gonna happen is TLB could go out and open for this band. And then this band, of course, would be more of a commercial, even though the music's going to be really top notch and complicated, but they would be a more commercial because they would have great vocals and everything. And so we get the Jen band, we get the dueling theremins. TLB can open.
We call it the Gents, and we all wear suits and ties. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
There you go. So think about this. Start looking for really amazing female drummers out there named Jen. Or it could be, you know what? If there's is Jen a European name that ever gets used for males? You know how like Jan Hammer, you know, if you were just a guy in America reading that, you would call him Jan, right? If you didn't know better. So is there a Jen name? Like it could be anyone named Jen. That's my point. It could be anybody named Jen.
Maybe I'll just learn drums better and do that.
Right. You don't need.
I don't need to play bass in the gents.
Raleigh says, dude, you said Raleigh correctly, just fell over. So what was the actual correct pronunciation?
You said Raleigh.
I missed that.
Okay, I did too.
Oh, I made reference to the joke that was made by, I thought Raleigh, and I don't know if I'm being corrected or I don't know.
All right, moving along.
Yes, right.
Glenn says
Jens.
Yes, which that's true. I've seen that. So, but that would be, yeah. I think we got to be very particular.
All right. Well, we'll let everyone know when that comes around.
All right. So,
you know what? I just realized somebody pointed this out. Jens is a male name overseas, and I knew an exchange student who was male whose name was Jens. So he would just be the plural version of a Jen. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Yeah, we already moved on.
I know, you're right.
So before we get into the album, one more Christmas-related thing I thought I would do. The Who's the Man of the Week.
Oh.
Because last night I watched, a bunch. I watched most of the stuff on Christmas Eve, and then last night I caught up on a few things. I watched It's a Wonderful Life last night, because I hadn't caught that yet. And thank goodness,
all kinds of angel wings going on here, by the way.
Right? Thank goodness the E Network was playing It's a Wonderful Life last night, and I got to see it. So these are from two Christmas classics, two grumpy old men. Who's the man? Scrooge or Mr. Potter? Who's the man?
If we're talking purely just grumpy men,
well, we're talking who's the man out of those two characters from Christmas classic stories.
Yeah, but like who's the man on a grumpy level?
Who's the man in however you think? You can explain.
I'm gonna say Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter.
Yeah.
And he's from It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life, yeah.
You know how I like to cause outrage by my ignorance. Never seen It's a Wonderful Life.
No.
Never seen it.
Oh.
Anyway.
Well, have you seen It's A Christmas Carol? Whoa.
I have.
He's done jail because he's never seen It's a Wonderful Life. I see.
I'm sorry. Were you here?
I think I know all the main beats.
Go talk to your sister.
Yeah.
Stephanie says, "Yay, Dale." Now here's the thing about It's a Wonderful Life.
Obviously,
It's a Wonderful Life. First of all, how old is this movie? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're starting to watch movies that shortly are going to be creeping up on 100 years old. You know what I mean?
How shortly?
Like I don't remember exactly how old the Wizard of Oz is.
Wizard
but that's
of Oz, I think it's 1929, somewhere.
Is it
in there.
that old?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
I think so.
So I mean, that's like a
full. It's 1949.
So think of like the production for that. Today, you watch it and it still holds up. They still watch it on color television.
Yep.
And it's almost 100 years old. That's crazy. Oh, I see. Chuck says 1939. Stephanie says 1938.
Okay, decade off, whatever.
I'm going to take the 9 as an average, and I'm going to say Jen and Chuck are probably, I'm going to say 1939 is probably right.
According to Wikipedia.
But they were filming it in 38, right? So
It's a Wonderful Life, 1946.
1946.
Wow.
So crazy. Anyway, if you have not seen A Wonderful Life, you need to put aside some time and go watch that movie because, right, Jen?
Yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah.
I mean, it's un-American.
Not a Christmas traditionalist. Ask me what time I got up on Christmas morning. Ask me what time I got up on Christmas morning.
Well,
Hey, Dale, what time did you get up on Christmas morning?
11:58.
yeah, but at least it was Christmas morning. And plus, that's only 9:58 in Hawaii. So
Sure. Yeah. Right. Only 2 minutes of the treacherous morning to endure before it was afternoon. Anyway.
right.
All right.
Hey,
Start making
Mary is here. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Maury. Hi, Greg. Hi, Glenn. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Chuck.
Yes.
Okay. So, oh, by the way, Mary says she watched It's a Wonderful Life yesterday too. So there.
Aw.
Oh, I know I'm a terrible person.
Well, let's go back to Mr. Potter or Scrooge. Travis, what's your what's your
Yeah,
man? Who's your man?
Well, here's the interesting thing that just came to me. One could argue that Scrooge redeems himself, correct? And learns his lesson.
That's true. Yeah.
Whereas I don't remember a part of It's a Wonderful Life where Mr. Potter does that.
No.
There's no part where Mr. Potter like figures out the error of his ways and becomes a good guy, right?
No.
So if you're going to say who's the man in the good sense of like a guy that figured it out, then you have to say Scrooge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was asking what was your
I just figured all that out right in front of you. So I hadn't thought it through, but that all came to me. But I think I enjoy watching Mr. Potter more.
He's an interesting character.
As a movie viewer, I think I like Mr. Potter, and I like the bald cap that he has on the second half of the movie.
Right.
Rather than actually,
there's so many variations on Scrooge as far as there's the book and then all the different movies, and so I don't have a clear cut definition of Scrooge, so it would have to come from, I guess, Dickens' original writings of it, whereas Mr. Potter, as in a movie, that's who it is. There's never been any other rendition of Mr. Potter other than that movie, so
right.
It seems a little more clear cut in that way for me.
Well, you got your I'm trying to remember the guy from Star Trek that played Scrooge, and that's a little too modern for me. So if I was going to go with a classic Scrooge, I would go with George C. Scott.
Right.
Patrick Stewart was the guy I was thinking of.
Oh,
Patrick
yeah.
Stewart did it, but Mr. Potter also kept the money, says Mary. Yep.
Right.
Exactly. So, but my favorite, obviously, Scrooge story and reimagining is, of course, Bill Murray, and I don't think you can beat Bill Murray. Right?
You could beat him. You could find him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can beat Bill Murray. Okay, so we're talking about Annika tonight, and I thought we could take a look at the first of all, maybe the promo video, because I think I have that ready to go, and that'll give us kind of an insight into everything behind the concept, Jen's artwork, the amazing photographs that are slightly misleading because you don't necessarily know what they are. Well, you kind of know what they are if you're a car guy, but we'll take a look at this.
Go to bed.
We could hear you, Jen. I always thought this looked like a planet.
Yeah,
Well, it's
totally.
supposed to, and that little hunk of metal there is supposed to be a satellite. Well, in my brain.
Here, I'm going to yank us out just so when the talking starts, people can hear it clearly. Okay, this isn't the video I thought it was, but nonetheless, backstage.
No, it keeps going.
Oh, does it? Oh, sorry.
What did you think it was?
We started writing for our 7th studio record late last year in 2015. There was a lot of change going on within our own lives, personal growth and loss. And then culturally too, the untimely deaths of musical heroes. It felt prominent, the idea that all things are in a state of changing condition and that no thing is permanent. I took a trip to Northern California with my camera in hand and no real idea of what I'd find to symbolize this concept of impermanence. These aging automobiles seemed to be the perfect metaphor for the cycle of change, a thing that once came off the assembly line as a piece of art, really, and existed as a vehicle, literally, a means to a way. One of the very first images I captured, a hood ornament from a 1956 Buick Super. This shiny, fancy ornament still intact, still there, but now surrounded by streaks and blotches of rust and broken windows. These cars, they were all still beautiful. It was just a different kind of beauty, a different phase of their existence. Annika, by definition, means impermanence, but I think this concept, the cycle of change, can be embraced because it just is. And ironically, through music and art, the act of creation, there is a sort of permanence.
So, yeah, I forgot that we had so much song in the beginning of that. I haven't seen it in years. So I was thinking that maybe I had the wrong video and it was just the song.
Mm-hmm.
I was more moved by that than I thought I would be. That was cool to see.
Yeah, no, I told Jen earlier, every time I watch that video, it makes me cry.
Yeah. Well, it really reminds me too about like, I know, Jen, that you're good with graphic arts and everything, but the thing about people who are photographers and graphic artists is they just have a way of seeing the world, and this is like a really deep level of that in my mind. It just makes me go, wow, yeah, it's just like that whole car yard as a metaphor for something really heavy.
Right.
So,
yeah.
that's cool.
So I also have some stills that we can kind of like run through while we're kind of talking about this before we get into the whole song thing. But and so far it's only 7:25. I know we always say that. So I'll see you guys. Well, this will be over about 10:25. But yeah, I remember when Jen put that video together, I saw it for the first time. I was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. A lot of Rush influence on this record, just as an overall thing. One of the things, well, I could let you explain the Annika reference, Jen, and all that. I mean, I know you talked about it in the video we just saw, but one of the concepts musically was we were just completely, on the last few records, we were kind of trying to skirt away from our influences a bit. And on this record, I feel like we got to a level where we thought we could do them justice and not sound like we were hacks trying to emulate our influences, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely some stuff in here that's very derivative by design of certain things. The opening chords of the whole record and the song Annika absolutely are designed to sound like the Rush album
Power Windows.
Power Windows, thank you. Which is a direction that we hadn't gone through that aspect of our Rush influence before, where we actually wanted to do some big production stuff. I mean, we've always tried to have some level of production and maybe keyboards and strings, but to really just go big and try and make something as another Clarence just got his wings. Trying to get something that sounded really glassy is the way I always like to describe Power Windows and that era of Rush. And so there's that element. And then the other element was taking kind of a very Dregs sonic approach, where we actually put some fiddles in even the song Annika, doubling the guitar, using, you know, strings for harmonies instead of guitars for harmonies, those kinds of things. And so combining those, so the song Annika to me is very much a combination of what, you know, if specifically that song anyway, is what it would sound like if you blended, you know, late 80s Rush with the Dixie Dregs or something like that. And where it's got this glassy production, but this progressive thing with some more organic sounds, you know, some violins and things that are mixed in with all the glassy keyboard stuff and the orchestras and all that. So, but Annika itself, the idea that this is reminiscent of many of our influences throughout the record, you could explain where you came up with that idea, Jen, because I don't really remember where Annika came from. I think it came from, you had done.
And you think I'm going to remember if you don't?
Well, you talk about whatever you want to talk about. I don't know if you want to get into too much of that, but I remember you went away on a journey.
Yes. All right. Yes, I'm happy to talk about that. I had done a meditation retreat. It's a Vipassana meditation, and it's a very intense 10-day. It's not, retreat is a ridiculous word, but it's more of a course, and you go away into the mountains. You are completely isolated, and yes, meditating very intensely for 10 solid days, for 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 p.m. at night. You have one meal in the morning and a small meal at noon, and that's it. And you are completely immersed in your own mind. And a lot of the discussion is about figuring out just how your body relates to, you know, the world and the universe. I don't know. You can look up Vipassana meditation. It's been a while since I went. Actually, I've gone twice now. Anyways, Annika is the concept of impermanence, and that everything changes, even down to the very cellular, you know, level of your body. And that's what you get to in this meditation. You can literally feel your the beginning and the end of everything that you go through with through this meditation. So silly, the word is actually pronounced anicca, but I decided that Annika was going to be more embraced by Western culture, and it would be hard for us to keep going, no, it's anicca. So for any of the people who have studied Vipassana technique, and they're like, no, Annika, that sounds very Western and wrong. Well, yeah, it kind of is. So I apologize for that. I guess it was a creative decision at the time.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also less like the way we pronounce it, as far as it being an album title, it made it a little more mysterious, and it could be somebody's name.
And I thought with the car motif, it was Annika almost sounds like a female name, and I know, you know, cars are often named after ladies, and it just seemed to make sense at the time. You know, I didn't expect a whole lot of problems with that, but I have had a few people who have said to me, yeah, no, that's Anicca. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I was making an album here, and I had to make some choices. So
you're taking creative license, I think, is the official way to put it.
Yeah, that is the official way to put it. So
very much like most Westerners, we just said it the way we wanted to say it.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of the tricky part of it, but yeah. That's what it was sort of born of. We were going through a lot of change in that period in our lives as a band and as individuals, and I think there was this heavy realization of everything is changes. You know, what's the Neil Peart lyric? You know, help me out, Dale.
Are you talking about?
Shoot, I
Never
know. I
mind.
feel it
No.
tickling my
Next.
brain too. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway,
You're talking about the tune about the dancer, right?
the change is the one where it's like changes inevitable.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
totally fried. Like I am so full on ham and potatoes that like my brain is not functioning anymore. And there's so many angels getting their wings right now. I can't concentrate.
Well,
Like,
we've had this conversation, and I know what you're talking about, Jen, and I'm blank too.
I'm in hell right now, but like all the angels up there are like wings, wings, wings. It's really
you could turn that off, you know.
Yeah, I just don't know how right now.
You don't want to keep those angels from getting their wings either.
That's true.
Right. If an angel gets his wings and we don't hear it, did it really happen?
That's why you're so lonely in hell, Jen, is that everybody's getting their wings. If you turn that off.
I know. I won't know. I'll just be all okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's sort of the quick, lame story about the title Annika. Someday, if you capture me, in a one-on-one, I could probably talk more coherently about this.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And someday,
when I'm bloated on ham and potatoes. Okay, next.
Well, someday maybe we will actually be able to. People will be able to see us one-on-one.
Right. Maybe.
And at that point, of course, when you're on the road touring, you're not bloated with ham and potatoes.
Nope.
So
never.
It's usually more like 7-Eleven beef jerky or Slim Jims.
Right.
This is a good picture here. Go ahead.
A show and tell. Oh, you're still showing the thing.
Yeah. I'm just going to go through this while we talk about it.
I have an actual hood ornament from the 1956 Buick.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
really
part
cool.
of it anyways.
Yeah, I haven't seen that separated from the plate behind it. That's really cool.
Yeah, this is just the plain part. But the photo shoot was definitely really intense because it's sort of not personified, but like that concept of everything is in a changing, everything changes. You can really see that when you remember what those vehicles used to be and what they had become and the change that occurs and change. I think the ultimate lesson or I guess wisdom in a certain way that comes from all that is accepting that change is not ever bad or good necessarily. It just is, and it's your perception of how you take it that matters. So with those cars, you could look at that. It's like, oh man, look at all those junkers now, but it's not really that way. It's just a whole different, they're just in a different phase, like I was saying in the video. They've just changed, and it's still beautiful,
Yep.
There's in here when we get there is some alternate pictures from that shoot that you did, and this was a junkyard. I don't know if you mentioned this already. If I missed it, I apologize. But it was up in Northern California off of High 5, right?
Yeah, Williams, California.
So anyone that's made that drive, you drive through a couple of, or you drive. There's basically the only thing I remember is there's 2 silos, I think, or maybe 4, but like these big metal silos. So here we go. Here's some stuff. Which this always reminds me of the movie Christine a little bit, because it's like, there's like a spookiness to these cars in a way, but also a beauty.
Yeah.
They're just sitting out there in the junkyard. By the way, somebody bought Christine at an auto auction yesterday. Quick side note.
Wow.
And what was the other one they bought?
Well, yeah, I was telling Jennifer about this earlier because my parents were watching this car auction on Christmas Day, and they auctioned off the Mustang from the movie Bullet, Steve McQueen's car. And it had a little rust on it, same original paint. There's scratches and dents on it from the movie, obviously, because anyone that's ever seen the movie Bullet, where it's going through San Francisco, they're just trashing this car. This this old trashed Mustang sold for $3.4 million. So if you have an old car like this in your yard, look into what it is.
Right. Well, only if Steve McQueen owned it.
Yeah. But yeah, this is really cool stuff. So anyone that knows the Annika album cover art, these are all the colors too.
Mm.
When I see that artwork. So that's,
this is more of the, there was so much. It was really hard to choose, and and this all kind of came together in a weird way. I wasn't really, with all these records, you don't have a clear path to the concept or the titles or any of that stuff. It all just kind of comes in a weird flow or a little spark of something. And I just remember that being a really intense time. A lot, like we had talked about, a lot of our heroes had passed away, and you just start thinking a lot about change and life and all that heavy stuff. And how do you turn that into a visual or a concept without it being sad and crappy? That's the one thing I don't gravitate towards is you want to express a thing, but how to do that in a positive way, not just a typical and often negative way,
Right.
So, and it's something, that I've learned through these Vipassana courses and stuff. Just the concept that change is good, in all kinds of ways. It's inevitable. It is just this. It's life. That's what happens. Everything has a beginning and an end, as far as we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
That's really.
And then again, that goes back to our perceptions, right?
Even the rough.
Because if it's only a beginning and end to us.
Right. But yeah, that's what we can't fathom more than that.
I was going to mention too, you mentioned some of our heroes, and when we talked about Shift last week, I mentioned that ELP, I was on this ELP binge, and that's why there was some B3 in the intro to the song Shift. This album here was right after we lost both members of ELP, and then also Rush retired. This is before Neil passed away, obviously. But so, two of my favorite bands were definitely done. And so one of the reasons that we kind of, there's the hood ornament you were just showing, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, two of the most influential bands, and they were basically done. So that was kind of the idea behind not being so discreet about the influences and using, more production. Like I said, the Rush thing is something that we hadn't really touched on from that aspect of their career, which, some would argue is the less popular aspect of their career, but I love that stuff too. And then there's more prominent Moog on the Annika record than there is on the Shift record, even though I disguised it on some Shift tracks. But on Annika, we were a little more just blending it with the guitars, making things more obvious, making them thicker. There's some tunes where you would never even think that exists, it sounds just like extra production. Like I think, we should get into the tunes, but
get into the tunes.
But there's some guitar lines that I harmonized with Moog and with strings and all this stuff, and kind of disguised it by using so many different instruments that you still hear it as a trio with the guitar, but the harmonies sound a little more dense and interesting than they would if I just recorded 2 or 3 guitars. So let's see here. Let's find. I have to make sure I have the audio on for this. And oh wait, that's not what I want. Hang on. I have to apologize for the audio that everyone hears when we do this every week. I know it's really bad because it runs through the same noise gate and filters that this vocal does, unfortunately, because it's the only way I can do it with this program. But it just gives us enough to where we have like a quick reminder of what the track was and is supposed to be. And that way, at least we can kind of remember what we're talking about. But okay, here we go. Shameless plug, by the way, this is the merch page on the Travis Larson Band website where you could listen to these samples yourself and then maybe even purchase the record if you haven't bought it yet. So I'll play a little bit of Annika, which again, that's also under the video that we watched in the beginning, but this is Annika. So real quick, I got a message from our friend Jerry, who mentioned he really likes the perception. This is when, people talk to us a lot on the road, and people have asked Jen a lot about this stuff. And my line and my perspective was always, basically taken from Jen's perspective. But what I would always say to people is I look at it like those cars were all cutting edge technology at one time, right? So when you look at the cars and all the artwork on the album, they at one point those rolled off an assembly line, and it was the shiny new thing, and you had all the new technology. You wanted to drive that car, and then we're looking at it as these old relics that are no longer operational, and the idea that it comes full circle into something that's new and basically a new creation. That's something that people would hopefully enjoy. So it's kind of the full circle of that whole thing.
I was going to say really quick, and I won't add on too much. I remember being angel wings. I remember being really aware of the energy aspect of the cycle thing, the rebirth and all that kind of stuff, because I remember, I think it was this album. I think I had a conversation with you guys, or I remember talking to you, Jen, saying, I'm not going to be able to work at the pace we've normally worked at. Like all the albums we do are so intense, and you're always aware of the costs. You're not, the costs to your contacts with other people, the money you can generate, the attention you have to put on anything else in life, and it just gets sucked into an album. And I remember saying, it was the first time. I was always aware of those costs, but this was the first time I remember saying the last one was too costly. It was one of these tricky situations, health-wise and also money-wise. And then right when we jumped into the album, I just remember turning down 6 months worth of gigs that would have changed the situation for me, and just passing it up and just putting my head down and having that conversation going, the costs were too great last time, and I'm going to do this at a different pace. And then realizing, and of course we went at the same pace as always. You can't just slow down an album because you miss the window for the next touring season. And then you can't.
Well, you used to not be able to.
Yeah, right. And so
I've been eating ham the whole time. I don't know about you.
Right. Yeah. So I remember saying the costs were too great. I'm going to slow this one down, and I apologize, but I'm going to be a dragging force on this. But of course, there's just a flow of an album, and that energy comes from somewhere. And in this album, I remember still working outside of the band a little bit to make sure that I could stay on my feet financially. And the reason I brought this up, it's more of a light thing. I didn't mean for it to sound so heavy. There's all those shots of me sleeping. It just came out of sleep. I remember I could only, instead of working every day after work on it into the night, I would miss a day here and there. And I had electronic drums set up at the studio. And I remember getting out of the studio and seeing the sun sometimes, which is, to me, remember, I hate mornings. And so that energy comes from somewhere, and it'll come from your health, or it'll come from your finances, or it'll come from your relationships, or it'll come from your sleep or something. And I'm not trying to sound heavy and grim by saying that. it reminded me of that, seeing all those pictures of me asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you don't get to just go, no, we'll slow this whole thing down. Things happen on a schedule, and they you get sucked into them, and that cycle of life that we talk about, it doesn't just happen. Energy has to happen. The sun
Right.
feeds the earth, and food feeds people, and all that kind of stuff, and people's energy feeds an album. Anyway, that was
the other thing I'll say about that, at least as my perspective, as and saying as an artist sounds a little pompous, but as somebody that's trying to create, is I can't do it if I take breaks on and off the whole time. I either have to immerse myself in this thing, and Jen and I talk about this, like once we get in it, we're in it, because that's how it happens. Because otherwise you don't have the focus and the ideas, and it doesn't keep happening. And you just kind of, I don't know, what were we doing? You lose enthusiasm for it, and you lose focus on what it was. And so it's not as good. So you kind of have to dive in there. It's like, if you're cooking a really complicated meal, I mean, I know Jen understands this, you don't just take a break and answer every text that comes at you.
Yeah. You say
that.
So, hey, Jen, on your phone, there's this little switch on the side that you can flip.
I know it's not my phone.
Oh,
it's
right.
not my. The heavens, it's out of my control. The angels are just going up there right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. I get it. I get what it is. I just understood.
That thing you just said. Sorry.
Jen Majura is here. Hi, Jen.
What?
Hey,
are you doing up?
I know. What are you doing up?
It's 5. It's actually 10 to 5 for Jen Majura right now, a.m. So what is wrong with you?
Middle of the night.
You crazy person. Dale was just talking about how he hates mornings.
Hate him.
What's the nighttime? If you look, 5 a.m. could be nighttime, could be morning.
If you're still up, I can get with that.
Well, after you go back to sleep and then get up later, Jen Majura, you can watch the earlier part of this show, and we talked about you. Because of the theremin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So anyway, I was just interjecting about the idea that you kind of have to immerse yourself 100%. At least I do, or else I can't get things done as well as they could be done.
I remember that about this album too, where what you're saying is true. If you're trying to get into some kind of creative zone, you can't be thinking about when you have to get out of it, or else it takes you out of that zone. And this album for me was so fragmented because I had 4-hour chunks of time here that I was working in, and it was jarring. Like you're getting into that zone and you're ripping yourself out and getting into it and ripping yourself out. It was so, it was really uncomfortable. I like the album though, so don't let this sound negative.
Well, and so talking about the first track, Annika, we just played. First of all, I love every album or every song on this album. And, I don't say that about, I'm proud of everything we've done based on when it was done and the resources we had, but I still love playing every song on this album. I can listen to it. Even songs that I've played a million times, I can still listen to them and dig it. So, and that's after, 3 years on the road with this record pretty much. So
touring on this record. Yes.
Yeah, it's really, this one came out as close to something that I would want to make as possible. So are we moving on to the next track?
Sure. I'll mention I don't have my notebook of alternate song titles and all those little goofy details. So if you guys remember anything interesting, good.
Okay. Well, this next tune, Behind the Age, which is another very derivative of 70s prog bands and some definite type influence, Rush influence, and then some Steve Morris type picking in this. But this is a song that I play. This is one that stayed in the set list for the last 3 years, and I play at every single clinic and all that. But I was really proud of this tune. So what's great about that is there's all kinds of Moog in that song. That's a heavy Moog
Right.
thing. And I see Jen Majura says, Theremins rule. Jen, it's going to be awesome when we do a song together on theremin.
Right.
So we're going to have to put some theremin on the next album. And then, like I said, at the next X Jam, that'll be, you know how the Aristocrats formed, where it was an accident at a NAMM event.
Right.
So at the next X Jam, we do the big theremin duel, and then we start the Jen band, where we get,
Right.
you guys, Jennifer Batten, and the drummer we need to find.
Hey, what's that WKRP bit where it's like theremin?
Okay, so they did a commercial that was very tasteless on WKRP for a funeral home, and so the bit is it's theremin funeral home.
It is theremin.
Yeah, because theremins, of course, make spooky noises, and it's a funeral home, right?
I was kind of making a joke. I didn't realize that.
It goes, theremin. He's the man with the plan, the man with the plot. Theremin. He's the mortician man that likes you a lot. Anyway.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Okay, so what was it?
Then we were listening to was Behind the Age, which has kind of a few different elements in it. It's got the big prog intro, and then the clip we just listened to was starting in the middle, and something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. And again, this was a very derivative by design idea. If anyone hears any Steve Morris, but specifically when the Dregs used to play, was it what's the Zeppelin tune they used to do, Jen?
Kashmir.
Yeah.
That was Steve Morris. Oh no, I guess the Dregs did it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the Dregs did Kashmir, and when they did it, there's those descending da na 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 na, and on the last one, Steve would arpeggiate everything.
Right.
And go diddle diddle. And so I wanted to do something that was very derivative of that. So that was that lick you hear where I wrote these spread out chords that play over the bass line, and then I wanted to be able to arpeggiate those, and that was something that I worked on very by design to try and have kind of a Steve Morris element in that song, because generally speaking, that song doesn't really sound like that Dregsy. It's more sounds kind of a Rushish, and it's got some ELP Moogs in it and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to do that one line basically for that reason. And then the bass line under that, it's funny how people bring that up. It's like Jen jokes about it because it's so simple, and that Jen always jokes about bass lines because they're so simple. But what's cool about it is it's got this kind of it's reversing with the drums every other bar, right?
Yeah, Dale, explain that whole Mariah Carey thing.
Wait, is that what no?
It's the do-dun.
He's talking about the other part. I was thinking about that though. Yeah, you do that two-note thing that was a three-note group where one's a rest, da 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 da, and then it takes a measure and a half to come back around. So we're out of sync a lot of times. Easy for me. I'm just going boom, bats, boom. Yeah,
do that, and I'll show people what it sounds like, but it'll be delayed because we're on the interwebs.
Yeah, that'll be great.
No, go ahead.
No,
come on, you did it for a second, and then you stopped.
No.
Come on, Dale. Come on, Dale. What does it sound like?
Reference to where in the very beginning, where I was trying to decide whether to treat it as a syncopated thing in like a duple type meter, or if it was more like a 6/8 thing. And I was asking you how you heard it, and you didn't know what I was talking about. So then I mashed it up with a Paula Abdul song because I can't remember the name of the song.
Mariah Carey. Oops.
No, whatever. So it was hilarious to me. Anyway, Trav never got it or never gave it up. He was like, just get to work.
Okay, there's a whole thing going on here where I see Glenn says Jen Ledger of Skillet. which
Hmm.
I'm not familiar with.
Is that a drummer named Jen? Is that what's going on?
I don't know. we're gonna make this happen.
Greg Tom says search underway. There's some sort of searching going on.
As
Yeah.
God is my witness, we're gonna find a Jen on drums. This is the big money. This is where it's all gonna happen.
Right.
This is our ticket. I'm telling you. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Jen Majura doesn't need a bigger ticket called Jen for some bullshit.
No, but here's the thing. How many bands does she get to play in where she gets to sing and play theremin versus play guitar? Right?
Well,
What if she didn't play guitar? What if she just plays theremin and sings, and then you play bass and Jennifer Batten plays guitar, and then you get a Jen on drums?
Right. Or a Swedish guy named Jens on drums or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And then we could call it Jen's Band.
What if you guys all just one by one join Skillet and just take over?
What is Skillet?
That's just the name of the band that Glenn found the drummer in.
Okay. We could do that. Skillet.
I don't know anything about Skillet, but I did for the other day use my new iron skillet for the very first time.
How was that?
It's fantastic. I got a what was it?
Cast iron.
Well, I got a cast iron skillet, from my brother. Actually, that was actually for my birthday. Jen says skillet is freaking amazing. So apparently she's hip to skillet. All right, well, slowly.
A coupe on the skillet.
Anyway, so I made my first steak. I can't remember. It was something that Jen's dad gave me.
What?
Jen's dad had a steak from Costco, you see. And so he said, "You want one of these? Because when you go to Costco, it's way too much food." So
what's the next song?
Should we do the next song? All right, hang on. Sorry. All right, here we go.
We never even talked about the last one, but go ahead.
Well, do you want to talk about it? I talked about it. Okay, the next song you talk about, Snake Eyes.
Oh man, then the best part was coming up.
Yeah, the best part, you have to buy the album for the best part.
Right. That's why these are clips.
So Snake Eyes, I mean, obviously to me, that's like a southwestern out there on Highway 8, driving like a bat out of hell in your Steve McQueen,
right, Mustang,
Mustang,
bullet Mustang.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, for me, live, this is going to sound ridiculous, but the hardest part to play is the part we just played, which is the arpeggiated kind of semi-dirty section. That that's like I have to do a pitch shift there because parts of the song are in D, but some of the song is in E. So I have to do all this pitch shifting throughout the song with the Digitech drop pedal. That's how I do it live.
Yep.
And it's just that section that's in D. And then the part that was just coming, the bridge section, is also in D, but it's not low. It's just in a tuning where it's easier to play it if you drop it, because I'll call it the Munsters section. It's the part that has that do 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 diddle do do, which is absolutely stolen from the Munsters. So
Hang on. I just have to point out, Glenn Hinsman says, being here on Saturday nights is like being in an asylum. And I would like to say, I cannot agree more.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Jen's asylum is burning down.
I know. I should have a straight jacket on right now. That would complete the look.
You're right.
Yeah. Right.
One of my favorite parts to play in the whole show, though. I dig that part. We put strings over it. This song, to me, production-wise, is very derivative of kind of like something Rush would have done in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's kind of like grunge Rush.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff off of what's the album I'm thinking of, Jen? The one they came back with.
I'm going to interrupt and say
Jen's comment over here. What were you talking about?
Good night,
Jen.
Good night, Jen.
I like that but this is still nighttime for her. I can get with that. If it's 5 a.m. and she's going back to bed, that's solid.
Right.
All right. What did you ask there, Larson?
Oh, Dale is starting to talk.
Oh.
Nope. I was just interrupting with the good night, Jen thing.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the album that Rush came back with in 2001. Vapor Trails. Yeah, it's kind of got that like down and dirty, raw Vapor Trails vibe to it.
Yep. Yeah.
Where,
I can see that.
So I did put some strings on the bridge section that we didn't hear, where all it is an arpeggio that Jen and I play together. It's like a little intertwined doodle 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 doodle. And that was very Alex and Getty influenced, but we put an orchestra over that with these cool bends and stuff that kind of make it add a whole nother dimension to it. And that's live. That's all performed with Dale samplers, but that's one of my favorite parts of the tune. And that's the easiest part to play, but it's really cool sounding.
I remember this being that song that I've talked about where there's always one song where you really like the mix on, and you would think you would just create that mix on all the other songs, but I like the mix on Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
I also
definitely turned out. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
My random good for nothing thought is I would always try to build the end of the song a little bit so that dynamically the very last section I'd start it quiet and get loud, and apparently I was taking everybody's head off. Kip halfway through the tour, Kip was like, "You can't play that loud at the end of that song. It's brutal." And then Gino, who had to be on the side, is like, "Yeah, it's pretty rough." Like, oh, sorry.
So this bit here is in standard tuning. You guys can hear that, right?
Yes.
And then the next section is D. So then I actually have to drop the whole guitar to D. Otherwise it would be, which is the wrong key. So, but that was another one of those songs where, I mentioned before, sometimes I tend to write things in my head and they don't make sense in reality when you try and apply them to a guitar or something. So, but it had to have that low part or else it wasn't going to be cool. So that was like a way to figure out how to do it. But on the record, I actually retuned a guitar. I don't have it here. I retuned the Luke Blue Axis because it has a fixed bridge. So I dropped that down to D standard, played one section, and then tuned it up and played the next section, and had to punch those because I didn't want to play the whole song in D. So
right, yeah.
You guys got anything else on Snake Eyes?
No. Good song. Good live song.
It's a good song. Not a hit. Good song.
Not a hit.
That's a reference. That's a quote.
I know. Right.
Right.
I love that song. That's what I love every song on this record. Okay, here's one that we haven't played live yet. This is Golconda. Perfect timing, Jen. So that's one of my favorite Jen bass solos of all time. And that was a song we were talking about putting into the live set when eventually we are playing live sets again. That song is also tricky because there's multiple tunings in it, and I'll have to figure out how to do it. But the intro to that song, that's got those kind of really tight, we didn't hear it there, but it's almost kind of like a show don't tell kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the Rush song Show Don't Tell.
Right.
So that bit is in a different tuning than a bunch of the other stuff. So it's going to be tricky to do, but I want to do that eventually. And that's one of the sweetest sounding bass solos on any of our records. It's such a great tone out of Jen's fingers. It's we always talk about, it's hard to get that kind of swelly, fat, almost fretlessy tone. And
Right.
that solo sounds awesome. And it's cool too, because it's the longest bass solo, I think, on any record. And then it goes into the longest guitar solo on any record.
Right.
So it would be such a great dynamic thing to do live, you know?
Yeah,
So
I know. Yeah.
we're going to have to get that together.
That was
We need a
probably
lot
my
of-
favorite song off the record, or
Yeah.
one of the top 3.
And I don't know the Golconda story. I don't remember it, Jen, but you named that song.
Really? No. I had this really, a lot of times these songs create these little stories in my head, or little mini movies or visuals. And this one was, I don't know, it reminded me of the gold rush. You know, I could just imagine pioneers out in the out west digging with pickaxes, and how difficult it may have been, sweating, you know, I don't know. That's kind of what came to mind, oddly. So a few of the other titles, I don't have my book here, but one of them was like Motherload, and I'm like, that's not going to be an okay title.
Yeah, don't look that up on the internet.
Right. And then you know, Gold Rush, you know, any of that stuff was a little too obvious. So Golconda actually means, it does mean motherlode, I think, maybe in like Spanish or something. And I don't know, that song really had this very specific image in my head of a pioneering gold rush era kind of thing. So
Jeff says there's a Golconda summit on I-80 near Nevada, or in Nevada.
yeah.
Wow.
It kind of means like the mother load, but like you know, the big prize kind of thing. So yeah, that's where that came from.
And I
I
think
don't know why that thing struck in my head, like this big gold rush image. You know, I had a whole movie going in my head. It was crazy. So
I think Tommy has absolutely the right idea here, but he's going to have to come out on the road with us and help us move this stuff. But he says we need to get you both double neck guitars like Rush. I love that idea. It just sounds like so much work.
yeah.
But if Tommy, you want to come out on the road with us next time and get those dialed for us every night, that would be fantastic. I'm all in. Golconda memories, Dale, or input.
This is the main thing I remember was how I remember the intro, the way the demo was done. Going, okay, I sort of get this but it seems kind of stilted and odd to me, the way the drums were, the demo drums were. So I said, well, I'll do this the way a drummer would do it. But then I could tell sort of I had taken it away from the direction you were thinking of. And so it sounds really off balance and stilted to me in the intro. And then I gradually realized, oh, you kind of liked it how you made it, didn't you? And you're like, well, yeah, I don't want to be like a tyrant or anything, but yeah, I like that. And so then but it's so unintuitive to play. I can't even explain how weird it is to try to play that.
Talking about
that
syncing up with Jen.
Just everything.
Just boom, all that weird stuff.
just every single intuition you would have as a drummer of which limb would play on which note and where the crash would be and what would be low notes and what would be high notes. It's just all backwards. And so a lot of that stuff earlier in the video or the pictures of me writing things out, a lot of that was just that because I couldn't make myself do these things. But it probably doesn't sound that odd to a non-drummer, but it's just everything is like I'm going to need a lot of pre-warning if we're going to play this live to figure out how to execute those parts.
Yeah, I thought Jen Majura went to bed, but she says, look at Sons of Apollo with those 2 double necks of Billy and Ron. Great idea. Good luck to your backs. Go to bed.
Yeah, Bruce already said take a chiropractor on the road. So mainly I just remember that. The body of the song wasn't there was some tricky parts, but nothing too bad. But that intro, and I think it happens in the middle of the song too. I would have to. It reminds me of a type of thing like I've heard Dave Martone talking about writing on a piano and then learning it on a guitar, where you would never do these things on a different instrument. This was just a non-drummer making a part that sounds cool, but a drummer would never play it that way.
Well, here's how screwed up. Because I wanted certain notes to ring in that intro, and I wanted it to sound very Alex Lifeson with like the ringing open notes in keys that we're not in. Yeah. So I'm playing these things, around what you guys are doing, and then you're accenting bits of them so my stuff's supposed to sound loose and trickling over itself, and then you guys are adding like this tight staccato reference to some of the notes within the arpeggios that I'm playing. But this is why it's going to be difficult live, and I'll figure out how to do it. But I capoed like some of those chords and not others. Like I literally punched it because I knew what I heard in my head, what I wanted to do. So it's capoed it's got that and like I literally had to like release the capo, I think, to get the odd note. And then I had to move the capo for the next section that I didn't just hum. And so that intro is very complicated as far as it doesn't sound hard, but if you figure out how to play it properly, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be challenging. I'm going to either have to use a guitar that has a different tuning on a stand or something like that, or I'm going to have to like have a movable capo, or I'm going to have to use some kind of electronic pitch shifting on the guitar or something. I don't know yet, but it's going to be tricky.
Theremin? Could you use a theremin on that part?
Well, that we're going to save that for the Gen Band.
Right.
So,
I love it. It's a really beautiful song.
Sam left a big nice note here.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you, Sam. That's
Thank
beautiful.
You, Sam. Yeah. All right. So should we move on?
Sure.
Yeah.
This is let's see. Mercy Springs.
Oh boy.
So that's the outro guitar solo, and a significant thing about that is that is the absolute first take inspiration from the demo that you literally just heard right there. Let's say, and that's the only song like that on a record. I think we talked about this before. I don't think there is anything that's like first. There's some stuff from the demos on the records, but that is absolutely I played that and kept it. And that was it. I cleaned up a little bit of timing on a couple licks with Pro Tools, just because it was a demo and I was completely winging it. But that's my favorite solo from the perspective of I have to be in that song to actually play it right.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and if I'm not, I'm just kind of like going through the motions. And if I'm really in it, then it's like, you know, that's one of those songs that's always magic
Yeah.
to play. And
Yeah.
I love the chords underneath, the chord progressions, you know, those changes. It's down in the mix because we always want, you know, things to work as a trio, but there's these really almost kind of dissonant piano chords that are under there that I really dig too. That
Yeah.
sound really powerful. But yeah, I love every song on this record. I mean, honestly, I could play these songs until I'm in my 90s and I will never get tired of this record. Like, I love this record,
Awesome. Me too.
which is,
Too.
you know, kind of surprising because the truth is we did our first run of records and then we took a break at that point and we did the Rate of Change DVD, and we took like 3 or 4 years off from making a new record in that point too, much like we are now, right? And that felt like, you know, like we were pretty burnt at the end of Rate of Change. And then we came out and we just, I thought we were kind of maybe coming to the end of being able to do that. And we hammered 3 records out like back to back, and like just, you know, stuff I'm really proud of. I don't want to sit here and say great records, but you know, the best records that we had made, we just hammered them out. And this was kind of the last of them. And I can't even believe we made this record. And I can't believe it came out as well as it did. I mean, I'm really, really proud of this album. And, you know, another big inspiration that helped a lot was this was the first album where I was demoing with any kind of MIDI technology. We've talked about that. Everything else we ever did was kind of like the demos would be spit taped together with some crappy drum machine or something. And this was actually taking the initiative and saying, okay, let's figure out how to use software so we can literally compose within the computer before actually even learning how to play it sometimes. Yeah. And one of the reasons the production is so much better is because we were able to apply that to MIDI later. Because if I have something that's completely written on the computer, then you can take it, and once that work is done, you can try it on, you know, a bunch of different stuff. You could add, you know, keyboards or pianos or whatever, and not have to learn how to play it on each one of those instruments later until it comes time to play it live. So that was a reason that, you know. But this album, this song here has a really great production on it, and this is one of my favorite songs.
Dale, what do you have to say about this song?
I like it's similar to what Travis is saying, where I like the fact that the intensity of it builds. It's like it's a cumulative effect. The first verse, there's a lot of rhythm section stuff, and we sort of make that statement, and Travis drifting a little, and then it has a sort of short chorus, and it adds more intensity. And if everybody's in the song, it just continues to get more intense.
Right. Yeah.
Even though it's not a big, intense, powerful, you know, it's not a chopsy song or anything. And so yeah, if everybody's in it, by the time we're getting to the final set of choruses, I'll have chills. And it always pays off that way. It's like a combination of trancey stuff that sucks you in, and in the moment stuff. So I love that about it. And the high stakes part of it is all it takes is one mistake in the right place by anybody to just tank all of that. Like I'm saying I do it, but like you and I have that big elaborate part, and now it's pretty easy nowadays. But in the beginning, it was so hard, and it was so fun when we're nailing it, and I would be so into it, and then I'd fuck up the kick part, and all that tension would be just lost, and you would build it back up, but it would never get built up to where it would have been if you held it the whole song.
Right. Or I would hit the wrong. Yeah, same thing. I would hit the wrong chord. Like, what? Where am I? And yeah.
Stuff you get away with. Yeah, anybody can tank this song at any point.
Yeah.
This is another one of those songs, like most of our groove songs, where the rhythm section parts are deceivingly simple or deceivingly complicated, but they sound simple. You know, it's the hits you guys are doing, not physically hard to play, but they're all different and arranged. And that's the big thing with this band, that people until you learn how to play the songs, you don't realize how much thought goes into the kick and the bass, whether it's an easy sounding song or not, but to make it interesting. And we've mentioned that before. One of my big things with a simple song is to make it as complex as I can, still sounding listenable, so that you guys are making it interesting and I don't have to all the time, which sounds like a cop out, but there's guitar players out there. There's guitar bands that sound like guitar bands. And I don't like that. I don't like a band where the guitar player is just constantly carrying the whole thing. And it's too hard to create any real magic that way, because they always end up overplaying stuff. That's why Jeff Beck is great, because if Jeff Beck plays a ballad, sometimes he'll barely play. He's like the Miles Davis of electric guitar players, and you can't do that if the rhythm section is not making something completely interesting. Even if it sounds trance-like, it has to be interesting.
And in that vein, Trav, like a lot of those one-dimensional guitar shred bands, the rhythm section is really boring because they're just staying out of the way of the shred.
Right.
So I feel like this is a good example of that, where Jen and I have a long phrase we're playing, and you can just kind of hint around it, and then later you can go for it, but it's already been planted in people's minds by then.
Yeah, there's more than enough shredding throughout our shows, and usually if we're playing with anybody like Larry or something, the last 20 minutes of the show is going to be all just mindless shred for fun anyway. So the songs should be songs, it's not about that. It's about it being interesting and emotionally moving at the same time, in my mind. I see
Chuck.
Well, I was going to say, Tim Brown said he wants 20 of those shirts, Dale, for his guys at work. Yep. And then, Chuck mentioned that it was this was a song named off of Mercy Springs off of I-5, Lost Hills area. That's a question for Jen.
Yeah, I mean, my recollection is, because we have the big intro to this song, this was sort of the working title was like the Peter Gabriel song or something like that. It's very Gabriel-esque, and in my head, Mercy Street, kept popping up, and then we were on tour, and I saw the sign Mercy Springs, off of I-5, and I was like, oh, that's it. And again, one of those jot it down. It's just such a cool, grouping of words. I'm always fascinated by words that complement each other and that are unusual together, so Mercy Springs, it just feels like that song felt like, Mercy Springs from this, and anyway, so yes, it is a road sign off of I-5, but it was sort of influenced by the concept of a Gabriel-esque vibe of this intro and this song.
So something I almost forgot production-wise too was the Genesis song. So the intro of this, the concept we stole from a Genesis song, which is the song they have where it almost sounds like reverse keyboards, and then the band comes in unexpectedly in a spot you don't think it will. It's that groove. Do 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 do. Reach out, something. I can't remember the song, but it's a Genesis tune. So I read about how they did that, and what they did was they took the arpeggio of the song and sequenced it on a keyboard, and then put a slow attack keyboard sound on it, and it was late. So it was running late with the tempo of the song, so that when the song came in, it comes in deceiving, but then the keyboard part stays there throughout the whole song. So that's exactly what we did with this, just as a concept. So when you hear the intro to this song, it almost sounds like reverse. It's like this kind of lush, kind of weird thing, like these pads, and then the guitar comes in with the band, which is playing those parts that you're hearing, but they're almost sounding upside down with what the guitar does. And then that part stays throughout the whole song in the mix. That was totally a Genesis thing, going back to the idea of Annika being things that we wanted, influences that we loved about old stuff that was, prog records and things we listened to.
Right.
And we wanted to either try or emulate those kind of things. So it sounds nothing like that song, but that idea came from that Genesis song.
Right.
So
the title too.
Anything else on this one, you guys? You want to move on?
Yep.
All right. Let's see. So this is Autopilot.
Oh, brother.
And you got to buy the album for the rest of that madness. Okay, so a couple of things about that. I'm glad the chorus was in that clip, because the chorus is, with the exception of one note, all done with harmonics. And that was actually taken from the Cheap Trick idea, which is also why the bells are in there. That's as close to a Christmas song as we get. It's got the ding dong. But so I'm playing all those harmonics, that do 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 do. I wanted to that was just one of those stupid challenges. The whole song was basically meant to just have some high octane tune that Jen and I could have a huge unison section. And we hadn't done something like that since Barrage à Trois. So we wanted to have something that took that even further, that was ridiculous. So basically what we did was I just played an entire guitar solo and Jen learned it. And then we played it as a duo. And so there's not a guitar solo or a bass solo. There's just a solo. And we play the whole thing in unison. And, of course, that's derivative of, anything with Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan, or, lots of stuff out there like that. But we wanted to have that stuff works so great for stage. Sometimes you write songs that are going to be live performance songs. And that's kind of the idea behind them. That song, incidentally, on record didn't work until again, one of those things where Jen said it's not working until you come up with one last thing. And the last thing was the little chicken picking part.
Right.
It wasn't a song until it had the simple thing.
So Tommy says, can Jen explain the immediate "oh brother" comment? And I think that's what it is. This was one of those songs where it just did not come together for a very long time. And I'll admit, this is my least favorite song on this record. And everyone else was like, oh my God, that's my favorite song on that record. But it just was it was like giving birth to a 20-pound child. It just seemed like it was so hard. It just wasn't coming out right. And yeah, that chicken picking thing was like, finally I was like, okay, that's good enough. I'll take it. That's
Well, it's one of those songs. Sometimes like I said, you write a song for live performance, and that song was written for live performance.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun to play.
It is fun to play, yeah.
And it rocks live, and it's always, it gets a good reaction. It does everything you want it to do. We create the unison solo part. At the end of that, you hope everybody's going to go nuts if you actually pull it off. You have to have some high energy. We are entertainers on some level as opposed to musicians. So if you're going to play in a musician's band, sometimes you got to write stuff that's just going to be entertaining for people to check out, and not the most heartfelt song, but a lot of fun to play. And sometimes you just got to rock.
I remember having the same reaction to the chicken picking, but not in the tracking. It was in the when we were starting to rehearse for it. I just happened to be in the studio, Trav, when you came in to check out some stuff. And I remember going, oh, because I had...
Just so everybody knows what we're talking about when we say chicken picking, we're talking about, it wasn't in the clip, but the groove, these guys are rocking out, and I'm playing this little... Okay, I don't know if I can do it right now. I can't remember it, but I'd have to.
Has like a Nashville-y kind of country feel to it, and it's like a real contrast to Jen and I just going da 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 da, and I just never really hear you play that way. I didn't. I just remember going, oh, if you can actually do that, this is going to be awesome. But it was probably backhanded. Like you're like, of course I could probably play this, but I remember thinking that was going to add enough flavor to the song that it was going to not get old and too bombastic. I feel like there's a couple songs of ours like this where this song is for me, my oh brother to this song is that it's really what's the word? Unforgiving song to play. If it was a faster song, we would have all this grace with sloppiness. And if it was slower, it wouldn't be hard to execute. And it's right in the zone of there's like a lot of unison parts where all three of us are playing it, and they have to be played powerfully and cleanly, or it's just gross.
Right.
And you can't lay off it. They're not easy to play, and you have to dig in. And I don't know how you guys are on stringed instruments, but as a drummer, again, if it was a lot faster, I kind of used a different kind of like more jazzy technique, but you got to hammer it out and it's got to be powerful. Everything's got to be perfect. And man, I listen back to recordings of this all the time if I have access to them, and I'll be happy with one and I'll be happy with another one. And then the third one, I'll be like, that was lame. Like I just can never take it for granted, this song.
Yeah, me too. That's the speed. You're right. It's just this awkward speed. Those double stops of da 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 da. It's really tough. And Dale and I laugh about this. If it's second or third in the set, we're both like, I don't know. I'm not warmed up enough by then. But then if it's too late in the set, you're kind of too burnt out to do it too. So placement in the set has been a topic of discussion.
Well, the tempo of this song was absolutely determined by what was possible too, because I knew going in, the whole idea going in was we're going to write this section. By the way, speaking of that section, Gino says, if you do it together, is it a solo? And Glenn says, interesting theoretical hypothesis. so
theoretical.
Sorry.
In a big band solely, but I don't think that's quite the right word either. That's like a whole bunch of instrument.
So the thing is, obviously there's things you can do on guitar that you can't do on bass based on the size of the strings, so I wanted to write a bunch of crazy lines that I knew Jen could play. So it would basically, going into this one, I remember actually saying, can you play this? Can you play that? Could you play that? And even if she couldn't play something yet, she go, yes, that's possible. Like, yes, I'll be able to play that. For all that stuff that goes, all that stuff that's there's a few lines in there that I can barely pull off the descending lines. I always screw them up, but it's so fast you don't know. But the point is that the tempo was written around what was basically possible. What's the fastest tempo we can play these lines that will still sound clean and work? And then let's write the rest of the song around it. That's what it was.
Right. Yeah. But that makes the other stuff, at least for me, a little too fast, in a weird way, but not fast enough that it's that weird line. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Larry says you can't let the guitar player dictate the tempo. Well, he says live, and actually I don't dictate the tempo live. So thank goodness. Although I'm not bad, right, Dale?
That's actually annoyingly consistent live. I have to.
I have an unusual guitar player thing. This is not me bragging. This is just, I've mentioned this before, that somehow throughout my life, I've so ingrained that the stress mellows me more. I overcompensate. So if anything, if I'm scared to death and I'm nervous about something, I'm going to start dragging and Dale's going to rush because I'm going to be like, oh, are we playing something difficult? Like I've said before, when Jen and I did that clinic with John Petrucci, I was a wee bit nervous about that. And of course, just like I look like I'm on just like Valium. Like, I look like I've taken 3 sleeping pills. Like that's just the nature of me. So
that's another just real quick, like the verses of this song, I'm playing a really simple part, kind of a knucklehead, like boom, bop, boom. And that's a tricky thing to hold back on. Like if I'm nervous, I'm really holding back on that, but it's supposed to sound like I'm driving, and it's just everything. It feels like it's a lie. Like I'm holding back, but I'm trying to sound like I'm really pushing this thing.
right.
Anyway,
right.
yeah, everything about the song is awkward, but it's a really fun live song, and people
Exactly.
like it.
Well said, Dale.
Keep moving. Should we keep moving?
Yes, please.
Okay. Outside the Inn. Well, we know that song. So, I mean, obviously we hear that at the intro of every one of these episodes, but Outside the Inn, very clearly to me anyway, and this was very strategically worked out. This was one of those MIDI songs because it was easy to hear the timing counterpoint that way. But this was absolutely just trying to do a Genesis-y, like a late 70s Genesis kind of thing where they used to do a lot of stuff with like Tony Banks would do a lot of counterpointy stuff where he would play like some stabby chords and then the rhythm section would kind of accent the offbeat or the other beat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I was just trying to do. I was trying to have like a Genesis kind of influenced thing on the record. And what's cool about that song to me, there's a lot of Rhodes piano on it. I really dig the mix because I dig how some of it is all Jen slap bass, and then some of it I bring in like these rhythm guitars that are accenting notes of the slap bass, but not all of it.
Right.
Like just the hits where it's like bump, 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 like these off hits. But then she's doing the up plucks and all this stuff that live, totally fills up the whole song. I don't know. I dig that song. I don't know that that's one of everybody's favorites, but it's one of my favorites to play.
It is. Yeah, I would agree. I think we had a lot of fun playing that live, or at least attempting it. And it didn't always go over so well. That was a lot like, what was the, well, anyways, and sometimes we nailed it like so awesome. And then you really have to nail that one and people fully get it when you do, but when you don't, it was kind of like, oh yeah. But that song recorded is, I think, brilliant. I think the sounds, the tones were all so good. That's another one of those really well mixed songs. I think it came out so great. I really love that song. It's just, yeah, it's super Genesis influence, and the parts are so cool. Yeah, I think that's a really good song.
It's a song too that doesn't, it's not a melody song really. It's got I basically made up for the lack of melody in the choruses with doing some really melodic solos.
Right.
But the melody is really, again, it's more supposed to be this staccato kind of Genesis-y prog 70s thing. And it's tricky to play those parts. They're not hard licks, but to play them super tight, that whole
yeah.
And then when Dale starts playing these kick patterns, they're like diddle 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 diddle, all that, having that stuff tight live, like you're saying, if it doesn't sound super tight, it's kind of turns to mush. I remember the very first night we played that ever, and it was actually the first gig of the Annika tour, was playing in San Diego with Mike Keneally sitting in the front row.
Yeah, and we did not nail it that night.
Yeah, and I remember I had a friend that was sitting with Mike, and I said, how did that song come off live? Because I didn't feel, it didn't feel tight. And their response was, mushy.
Yeah.
Sounded mushy. So
I always remember I knew everything I had to do to get that song nailed, and I just needed more time. That's of all the songs, I just remember I can do all these things. I can remember all this information, just not in this time. And so I was cutting certain corners. And then about halfway through the tour, I felt like it started to get pretty solid. Maybe not even halfway, a few shows in, started to hit. And I agree, it's so fun just because it's so reminiscent of Genesis, and it's just so fun to play like a Genesis song. And there's just, but it's so dense. There's so much information in that song. You and I, the slap parts you're playing and the kick parts I'm doubling you on, or every single one is really hard to get just exactly right. And they're not go-tos. It's not like
it's not even like they're all we match them all. They're all counterpointy too. Like you hit some and I hit some, so that it makes this dugga thing. And if you're off a tiny little bit, and then it's like it's awful. So
one of us always has the job of the second and third 16th, but not the downbeat and not the
right. So, it was always like this, and then we'd meet in the middle somewhere, and then that's a really tough one live.
And some fun insight to people and watching is that's how we pretty much describe things in the rehearsal studio. like we need to work on the the dugga section. Let's work on that.
You know that part where you go dugga.
So I remember a guitar player friend of ours that Dale's mentioned this a few times. We have conversations with musicians that actually understand music and read music and stuff, and they go, "How do you guys communicate?" And we go, "Well, we just say the dugga part."
Like when you go to a mechanic and say, "My car sounds like this."
Yeah, gather around, everybody. What's it sound like?
Yeah. Go ahead, do
Go
it.
ahead, show us. It's like all right.
And then it, woo.
So I love playing this song though, and I've kept this, like, even on my solo shows I would do this a lot, because with the solo shows you didn't have a tightness problem. Yeah. Like at guitar clinics and stuff, I was the only guy that had to be tight.
Right. Yeah.
But if you take all three of us trying to do off hits and weird, this weird intertwining thing that's basically like, it's like that fast. It's like digga, like these little licks that all have to sync or not sync in the right way.
Then the next thing, real quick, I was about to be done, but I will say you can get this nailed and feel like, okay, I finally have this. And I know I play an acoustic instrument, so I'm going to change venue to venue, but I think you guys probably run into this too on volume, where I'll play great twice in a row, and then you have a different sounding room or a bigger room, and I'm playing harder or softer, and then it just turns to shit again. It's like now it's the first time I've tried it, and so it just really
I that way too with the bass, because with the slap style, it makes a big difference getting that percussive or that certain tone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So different rooms always would mess me up. You and I were probably always on the same page with that. Whereas I feel like guitar, I mean, I realize Travis deals with that too, but with those high frequencies, sometimes it's just a little easier to cope with in any case. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Your whole mechanics changes, and maybe you don't know how to do it all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. I was like, this is not. Yeah.
You ready to go? Oh, you want to try the next one?
Yeah. Sure.
Pretty Reason.
Oh boy.
Another song with some fiddle in it. That's my favorite ballad with intertwining bass and guitar. What's so cool about that composition is how Jen gets to play the whole melody and the bass with me. That was all completely by design. Like I thought it's very reminiscent of. I mean, I guess the vibe is not necessarily that, but the vibe of being the slow, kind of heavy trudging but beautiful song is kind of King's X-ish.
Yeah.
And then those rhythm guitars under the chorus, very Beatles-esque. And again, that's kind of King's X as well, because they are very Beatles influenced. So the ja, like those kind of,
Sure.
definitely trying to get like a Beatles vibe going. But this album, when I was listening to the mix downs of this when we were first working on finishing it, I used to go for bike rides every day, and I was listening to it, and more than any other album, this felt like such a complete and like perfect package to me of how the songs flowed, how they went into each other, what a perfect journey it was. Like this is, I really love this album, and there's nothing on this album that I listen to where I'm kind of like, I should have done this. You know what I mean? I mean, the only things, I would say there's always little like production things with mastering or mixing and stuff like that. But as a whole, just compositionally and performance wise, I love everything on this record. This song is, again, one of my favorites. And this was written to have something that Jen and I could basically really interact, but also have it be a heady and emotional song versus the fast ripping, we're going to cut heads on stage kind of song. So that's one of my favorite guitar solos too. This is, again, you guys are doing this kind of Beatles-esque tight rhythm section thing under me. And it's a really elastic kind of flowing guitar solo. But that's my take on this song.
Really amazing one to play live. And Dale and I tended to explore the space a little bit in underneath the guitar solo live. Remember, we just kind of nail those hits a little harder, and we'd have so much fun and we'd laugh at each other because, we don't tend to stray that much live from the records. So when we do, we're always like, oh my gosh. So, this song for me is super fun. I use the Hipshot detuner. So halfway through little parts, I have to flip this, I have to flip that. And I'm using the piezo and I have to roll that on, and I roll this mid-range on and roll some high end. Like I'm like in space kind of controlling this weird instrument in this song. But it's because I'm trying to get this. I played fretless on the record, and I'm not going to lug around a fretless bass on tour. So I'm trying to emulate a fretless sound live. And I think sometimes with the sound is right and everything's right and I dial it in right, I've gotten such cool fretless versions on a fretted bass that I'll look over at Travis and like start giggling like, did you get that? That was so cool. And he'll just like laugh. And
well, I have to say too that this song on the sorry, I pulled my headphones out. Say something. Okay, just making sure. When you're talking about under the guitar solo, what happened was you guys would start making those silences more stark, I think. And Jen's running through 2 full stacks, so it's like 16 speakers, and she's in D, and she's going bow bow. Bow, bow, bow. I mean, it's so loud. This is the loudest part of the show. As much as it's a ballad, like I know I'm ripping that solo, and I always feel like I need to poop myself.
And I'm using the bongo, which is a very it's a far more resonant bass than the Sterling. It just has this, it has the poop EQ.
It has that brown note.
It's amazing.
It's the brown note. It's so big though. I mean, that one part where you guys started being more and more stark, the silences. So I'd be playing the guitar solo and you guys would like be back there hitting those hits, and then it would just be like dead silent, and then boom, boom. And it was so ridiculously loud when we would play a huge hall. Like, I remember playing like Gramercy Theater in New York, a place where it's just like the whole under the stage is subs, places like that where you've got like 5 or 18 subs in front of the stage, and you guys would play that part and it would just be like ridiculous. Like Like it felt like you were at a King's X concert, you know?
Me and Dale would giggle at each other, and then after the show, Kip would come up and be like, "We need to talk about that one."
Yeah, that's the thing for the viewers out there. When Jen and Dale start getting sonically unruly, Kip has a talk with them.
This is one of those songs where that dynamic balance is gonna like be the icing on. It's gonna unlock everything about the song, but it never felt like an intellectual thing. There's a few songs where I felt like the dynamics is gonna make this song, and we're gonna figure this out. This was always so close. You could feel it was like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like it was kind of 3/4 there all the time, but you knew you had to solve some puzzle, and then it started happening. I also like that this song is. I really think it's just a great song. Like in a lot of, it's an emotional song. Technically, I think it's great, and all of that translates to live, and that doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
Like it's a great live song, and it's just a great song, and you just get the whole package. So that's a fun perfect storm of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the touchy guitar melodies with the swelly bass doubling it. And I love the fact that, again, Jen's playing all those melodies, but she's using the low note to carry the bass. So there's still bass and melody in this song. It's a really cool effect.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's like three people playing stringed instruments, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good one.
Should we move on?
It's a keeper.
Pastime.
Oh.
I got to go back and practice this song because when I saw the title, I kind of forgot what's pastime. And then, because here's the thing, just for people, you know, watching is this song has again, one of the best bass solos. And so I can't play it live, like if I'm playing solo stuff like clinics or solo shows. So I won't play this without you because I never play stuff that, you know, to me, if you're going to have to do a solo show, it's bad enough if you're doing loopers and tracks, but you know, it's better to play than not play. But if you're going to do that, there's nothing worse than a guy standing there backing up a recorded solo.
Right.
So I'm very picky about how I put those kind of shows together, and I never play anything that has a big focus on Jen. So this song is this is a staple, but I haven't played it since we played it in January.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So I kind of forgot, you know, I was like, oh, what is this? Oh yeah. Like this has been in the set list for 3 years, but,
sure.
So this is just such a light and fun and rockin' tune to play. You know, I dig the bridges in it are very Rush reminiscent in a way, you know, but other than that, it's pretty much just a straightforward 4/4 rocker. Doing my best Jeff Beck to emulate a saxophone on guitar, basically. You know, I've got that kind of gritty, like kind of sound. I'm doing these finger picked chords, so they're not too loud, not too soft, which is just enough to make them dirty. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I dig the production on the bridges, that there's like the orchestra that doubles what Jen and I do. And again, that would be, there's either a combination of Dale using his samplers for that and the Fishman MIDI pickup that I use and all that stuff. But this is just a fun song.
Yeah. I remember, yeah, definitely. I remember when discussing the title and this and that, it felt like, you know, I think this was called probably in the working title, the Satriani song. Cause it was like I don't know.
Straight ahead.
Yeah, like the straight ahead rocker with a pleasant melody, and that got me to thinking about, riding in a car and the kind of concepts with all the car artwork and stuff, and how that harkens back, the good times and the past times, and I think that's how the title was born, like past time. And then I think there must have been a time. What is there an odd timing thing going on here, Dale?
I don't know offhand. It's mostly the verses are 4, but those I forgot what's going on exactly in those.
Usually when there's some time reference in the title, there's an odd something going on, because it's like, oh yes, this reminds me of past times, but also there's a weird time signature. I like get all stupid like that. So there might be a weird time signature in there too, but I think the title was referencing more like, this remembering past times and all that.
I remember this. This is a harder song that it should be. It's just supposed to sound relaxed and slamming. And then the demo process, we've talked about how Trav really started giving us way more sophisticated demos. And it was really cool because you could hear a fleshed out version of the song. Right. And I remember hearing this going, it sounds great. Should I just like sign or something? Like, this is great. Like, the groove was perfect. I'm not going to do better. And then, obviously Trav said, well, I just kind of threw that together, but you get the idea. Like, and then, the kicks weren't exactly lined up, but it's this vibe. And it's a classic version of that thing. And there's a bunch of memes out there about how guitar players tell drummer this vibe, but it doesn't, or everybody does that to everybody. I just see this on Facebook right now. Like, you tell this vibe and then it doesn't make sense. So then you play that groove. And then when you start moving the kick a couple, just to the right spots, that the thing that created the vibe no longer makes sense, but you're trying to keep the vibe.
Right.
And it's just one of those things that, oh crap, that vibe goes with those. I move these notes and I lose the vibe.
Right.
And you just feel like that shouldn't happen. But I just remember it being really challenging to play those verses, and they're so simple. And I do feel like eventually, we arrived at what to do there, but it was not an easy process.
Yeah, interestingly, it was a spaced out version, and then the very next one was do 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 do. So it's like do do do, and then do 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 do, because that made something like that. That made, yeah, it was really tough to get that balance of what we were looking for, because you couldn't do it the same the whole way through. You had to have the halftime and then the do 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 after it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I was going to say, one of the things with the bridges too, with that kind of stepping up idea, the bridge, so I write this fairly simple little chordal thing, and then this is an old TLB trick, is Jen will step it up every time. So if I do something 4 times, she'll play like maybe the root notes, and then she'll play slightly more the second time, and more the third time, and by the 4th time she plays the whole thing, doubling every single note that I did. And that's a way that we make sometimes sections interesting. And so that's the same kind of idea, where it's like little subtle things, where if you were just a guitar player listening and trying to learn the part, you'd say, I don't know, he just plays this progression 4 times. But What's interesting is how the band affects the progression. And that's why the band is important, because it's all about the dynamic of all the instruments working together. It's not just, hey, I'm going to play more notes the second time and more notes the third time and more, and then the 4th time I'm just going to shred. It's like, that's not the way we look at it. We look at it as more orchestrations. It's like Rush used to say they were the smallest orchestra in the world, right?
Right.
So it's like that. You kind of look at it as an orchestrating thing, even though you're dealing with 3 people. And so, okay, the second time, maybe Jen should hit this note and that note, and Dale should back that up. And then it gets more and more intricate, but you have to remember all that stuff every time.
Yeah.
I remember just
symbols always changed based on all of that stuff too. Yeah.
Right.
My own part lost its groove. Like there was your basic kind of funky boom, but then there needed to be a displaced snare, but then you lose the tick part. And then I just remember being like, if I was Simon Phillips, would I just make this groove, or would I say, well, no, you can't have that vibe with this groove. You don't get to, like, and The other thing I think about this song is those bridge parts. It's fun. It's not that hard for me, but it's fun. Those bing bing. You know how you think of certain players and you're just like, well, I'm going to channel that person for this. We've talked about Dave Miranda. Hi, Dave Miranda. He's a great drummer in Magic Elf, and he just makes these great big physical gestures when he plays. And that part I'll go down to low toms and then try to get to cymbal bells, and it's really awkward. But when I think of Dave, it's fun. I'll go bing bing, like literally half stand up, and my butt comes out of the seat. And
right. Well,
the whole thing.
I think it's as Italian people in Long Island, the big gesture is a way of life.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a big gesture guy. I'm kind of stare down and not be very.
Yeah, Dale's like, don't look at me, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's try to channel my inner Dave Miranda on that one.
I was going to say too, as a live thing, it's funny how, this is almost going to sound like a patting on the back, but there's parts that Jen and I do live that are really complex that sometimes you feel like Dale's carrying us because the drums have the definition. So like you play them on a concert stage, and if Dale goes, people hear that. They don't hear how sloppy we are, right? And in our defense, I will say, it's funny how much we'll think we're sloppier than we are sometimes, because the muscle memory is there from playing it every night. But then you'll start thinking, am I even playing that part, or is it just all Dale? Because on the stage, you just hear Dale, right?
Yeah. Well, and also remember how not very solid you were at the time of tracking, and you carry that with you around, and you don't realize some things you actually get good at it, like
that's right. Like Jen and I was going to say, this comes about because Jen and I end up doing a clinic where we haven't done a clinic in a year or something, and all of a sudden we'll play that. We always play that song now because it's a great, it's got a bass solo in it. It's easy enough to where we can play it as a warm-up tune.
Yeah.
So like if we're like last NAMM show, it's like we'll play the Ernie Ball booth or something, and it's the worst sound-wise. The NAMM shows on the floor, at the trade show is like the worst scenario. And so we play that song and all we can hear is ourselves, and you go, hey, we actually have that. We're actually doing that because I just played it for 3 years and I wasn't sure if it was just Dale.
I remember editing one of the DVDs, Trav, and you and I were sitting there and we were coming up to a drum part that we both knew I sucked at when we were making the record. And we're both just going, this is not going to be good. And then it was actually really clean. I just looked at you and you were like, where was that when we were tracking? But you just constantly think you're as bad as you were when you made the record.
Right, exactly. All right, next song.
Yes.
Distance Between. That's another song that we have not played live. So with just the clip, that sounds like the most awkward transition ever, but there's a reference to that earlier in the song. The melody that we go into there. Jen apparently just went up in flames. But so that tune, sort of in my mind, the progressive section is a little reminiscent of Behind the Age in that kind of aggro 70s prog band way. Maybe even a little more aggro. But to me, the thing that's really interesting about this song that makes it different is the big rock and roll guitar solo is an acoustic solo, which it's kind of I just thought I'd do that to be different. That goes back to the Steve Morris rule of just do something to be different. I thought the obvious thing here would be to just do a big shreddy solo for 16 bars or whatever it is. And instead of doing that, there's the part under it, there's a nylon string that plays that melody that we just heard originally early in the song as an acoustic melody the da 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 na 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 da 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 na na, and then there's a steel string that plays the guitar solo, and that's kind of seamlessly. Yes, we're talking about you now.
Right. The longer these broadcasts go, the less I can hold out.
Well, I thought you'd be sweating with all the fire.
I know. Ooh. Anyway.
So I was just saying that to me, kind of the obvious different path in this song is that the big guitar solo is an acoustic solo.
Yes.
But, and it's got like the most aggro left turn into a melody of any of the songs on the record, but the melody is actually referenced in the other part of the song earlier, but it's different. The basis under the song when the melody's playing is completely different from one section to another. So at the end, we've got this kind of Simon Phillipsy shuffle thing going on.
And I think this was a little bit of influenced by the some Dave Martone stuff, right? That flamenco style.
That was yeah. It's good that you point that out because I had kind of forgotten, but I think that's the idea, was the juxtaposition of heavy song, this aggro proggy stuff. It's not as metal as Dave, but it's Dave would do these things where he would play acoustic guitar solos over like the heaviest, like kind of metal thing, So I thought it would be cool to do that. And mine ends up, this tune sounds way more reminiscent of like this sort of Rush mid 70s thing to me, because it's got the aggro, it's got this crazy progression thing. And then it's like this kind of, like you said, this almost like flamenco-ish guitar section.
Actually a samba kind of beat, Dale, or yeah,
that's the most fucked up thing I've ever tried to learn in my career. It really is, and it's not even that long. And that song
because the melody, right? You lock up with the melody as you're doing this thing.
It's like this samba groove. I forgot about this until we're just talking about it. Otherwise, I would have gone and looked for what I wrote down for it. Yeah, I'm locking up with the melody. And the melody was one of these progressions of time signatures. So you're not really just playing in 4. Like it's kind of like 4 and 5 and 7. I don't really remember. I might not be saying the right things. And then
and there's hits underneath with the bass.
It's underneath with the bass. And then the snare dictated certain time signatures too. And there was a seam in it. And I never quite was 100% sure if you knew that seam existed, like, or if you just made a loop that went 4 measures and then there was 3 extra beats. But gradually I realized the point of that, like everything there was a point to everything. You Pro Tools it together, but there was cymbal hits and there was the snare dictating stuff, and it was already a hard groove to play. And I remember thinking I was going to learn it in one time signature. Like I'm either going to live in the time signature that you're going to play in and then figure out where the snare goes and that sounds whack, or I'm going to learn what the rhythm section's doing and try to hit what you're doing. But I just finally decided I'm going to man up and learn to feel all this simultaneously. If I was Dennis Chambers, I would just be able to do all this and feel both lines, and I'm going to do that. And it was a really fun process, but I was going to spend the whole album working on that 16 measures. You know what I mean? And not to mention the verse of this song had another thing that took a long time to figure out. It's like, it's this real kind of sparse. It's a fast 16th part. Yeah. And it was one thing that I sort of understand when I listen to it divorced from where 1 is and stuff, how there's a bass phrase that goes over this bar line.
Right.
But there's a jog of 1/16th note at this speed, and I had to just track it down and find where it was, make sure you really meant to do that, or if it was a sloppy edit during the demo process, and then figure out, because a few times I just thought I rushed and I laid back and it worked out because it was only 1/16th. And then so everything about this song was crazy, but it was a fun challenge, and that worked out too. but you don't really hear that. There's a 16th note. I don't even know what the time signatures of that one measure or anything.
This is probably the pinnacle of the easiest to listen to and most jacked up TLB musical thing, right? Like we talked about what's the other one, Jen, was What's What at the outro to What's What.
Right.
That's a similar thing, but this is taking that to the umpteenth degree, especially at the end of this song on the outro, where
Right.
the samba thing is like really jacked up if you really listen to where the changes are, the chordal changes,
Right.
and what Dale has to sync with while trying to hold down a groove that feels like you can just snap along.
Right. Sure.
You know?
It was, and I remember talking to you where you were like, yeah, I know what you were saying. Like, just there's two things going on, learn one of them, and then figure out where the other thing exists relative to that, except that I couldn't do that and then play fills within both of the frames. That's what I was trying to figure out, is I could figure out how to do both things, but then I couldn't flow and fill the spaces. And I'm just not, it's granted, I'm not Dennis Chambers, but I just really wanted, like, this is not a song like The Drift where I was all mad. This is like super. I was like, do you have any idea how hard a thing you wrote? But I was all excited about learning it. But then I had to pull myself away and just go, look, you're going to like wing it when you record, because you can't just spend the next 6 months learning to play this section of music.
Right.
Well, the deal, I think, is you have this part that's completely jacked up chordally underneath, and what's happening is I wanted a straight beat or straight sounding beat, but the melody, the chordal changes happen on different notes of the melody in different times. So the melody sounds simple. It's the da 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 da. But then underneath that, I don't know exactly what it is right now, but it would be similar to like if it goes da 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 da, like you'd have a hold there, da 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 da, and so the band would, like Jen's chords and the drums would lock up on different notes of that melody as it circles around in different times that sounded smooth, but they're awkward. So there may be a 3 count, and then maybe a 7 count, and then maybe a 5 count, and then maybe a 4 count, and it's like all jagged, but it sounds like something that you could snap your fingers to because it's spread out enough. That's the whole thing, is the kick drum is what takes the illusion away from. It doesn't sound jagged because the kick drum is very straightforward.
Yeah.
So
it's totally
the Love Boat theme.
I'm really looking forward to this one on the next tour, though. This is gonna be fun.
This is another one that Dale said we're never playing that one. We're never playing that one live.
It'll be great.
Now that we've documented it, I bet we could. But I remember.
No, it's gonna be great.
The thing that I remember doing was, okay, the samba thing with a 3 count. I think it was a 3/4. So I'm going do to do to ga to do to do to ga to do to do to ga. I just do that. And the thing that I figured was going to help me was if I could learn how to count the other stuff. But to do it and hear myself through my headphones, I'd be in my room going do to do to ga 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3, but then when I'm yelling all those numbers, I don't know whether I did the snare at the right time either. So I'm recording myself to listen back, and I have to yell loud enough. And I was playing, and I didn't lock my door, and I look up. You guys just imagine people. He's like standing in front of me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm just yelling numbers and playing a messed up waltz samba really loud.
And as people that don't understand that you're even in a band, they just think you're practicing in the studio. Yeah. There's a guy yelling numbers and just playing drums.
A waltz samba, no less.
Yeah.
Right. But the outro of this in my mind was very influenced by what you would hear on the Victor Wooten, Greg Howe, Dennis Chambers album Extraction. I was trying to do something along the lines of like Extraction.
Yep.
But we don't play it like that band. We're not really a serious fusion band. We do a little bit of fusion.
Serious band,
right? But I wanted to have an aspect of that in a song that was progressive, because again, trying to take things that we thought were really cool throughout our listening experiences and put them into the Annika album, and so that was something I've done very little stuff like Victor's World, Victor played on Georgia, and that kind of is the extent of anything that we would do that really sounds like anything Victor would have ever been involved with. So this was, even though the song itself sounds nothing like that, you would think this is totally like a proggy, angular, TLB Rush influenced riff in the beginning and all that stuff. But then the outro is trying to take that kind of extraction, Victor Wooten, Greg Howe, Dennis Chambers thing, and that the beauty of that is that I have like this melody that I have to totally just like play it to like nothing. Like I can't listen to you guys. I have to just kind of hear the pulse and just play it. And like, so like when we do this live, I'm going to keep saying that. It's like you just have to kind of almost relax and just lay back and just play this do 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 do, like it's kind of almost behind the beat a little bit and stuff. But if you feel it and you just lay back and do it just right, it all lands right in the right place, And I literally had to compose that melody. I knew what the melody was from earlier in the song, but to do it on the outro, I literally had to use MIDI sequencing to put it where I wanted to put it, to make it feel how I wanted it to feel, because I couldn't physically make myself do it over you guys yet.
Wow.
So I had to sequence the melody and then learn it as I knew the notes. So I wanted to play, but I couldn't get the feel. And I actually had to compose the feel. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was a pain in the ass. And it's so simple. That's the stuff that people never know. They listen to that melody. You play that for a 13-year-old kid. He's going to go, I don't know. That doesn't sound hard. Right. It's like, yeah, but try and compose it over that rhythm section and hitting the accents where you're supposed to.
I've never
feel proper.
I've never wanted Dennis Chambers' brain more than that. I remember hanging out with a drummer friend and showing it, and he's going, I don't know, it's going to be pretty rough. And I was like, can you imagine if Dennis Chambers played this, how great it would be? Anyway, yeah.
All right. Two more songs, you guys.
All right.
Another one we have not played, K9 360. So again, trying to incorporate one little influence from, even a piece of people. So obviously that whole thing there, it's not whammy, it's unison bends, which is where you hold a note and bend another note into it. But that is absolutely like a Steve Vai type of thing, right? Like just trying to write a little piece of something, because I've never really ever emulated Steve Vai. I love his stuff. I love his early, Dale and I, like when we first talked about playing in this band, one of the big connections was some Steve Vai stuff. But we've never really done anything that sounded too Steve Vai-esque. So that tune, and then trying to, of course, as TLB, to step away from that so it's not too obvious. There's some dregs fiddle in that song and harmonies to the melody in the verse sections that sound very dregs like. So but the kind of, I want to say the whammy part, it's not really a whammy part, it's a unison bend part. And I remember every single one of those, including the harmonies, is a different track so that it pans. Mm-hmm, so you hear it pan. So live, I would just play wah da wah 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 da da da. But I played wah 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 wah, and then when I overdubbed the high part, I put another track over here and another one over here. So it's all hard pan left and right, so that they overlap just a millisecond. So it sounds like different guitars and it switches left and right. That was totally done just for the mix production. Was completely unnecessary performance-wise, but wanted that effect to make it interesting. And of course, Canine 360. So I won't tell the whole story about Chloe today, but Chloe is like a king of Canine 360. Chloe is a little what is Chloe? A Shih Tzu?
No.
What is Chloe? What is
Pomeranian?
Pomeranian. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Chloe is a little Pomeranian that belongs to Jen's dad, and I've been house sitting Chloe the last couple of days, and so Chloe is the king of the dogs that would do a Canine 360. Right. If I explain what a Canine 360 is, we all know what a Canine 360 is, right? There's the when you get a dog that's so excited that they just stop spinning, that's a Canine 360.
Right.
And so back when the song came out, I had a friend of mine that had a dog that would do Canine 360s until he was sick. And then he would kind of lay there and then just do this.
That was Penny.
Yeah, that was Penny.
Penny's a she, not a he. Just mentioning.
Did I say she?
No, you said he.
Oh, you're right. Penny is a she. Sorry. So yeah, Penny would get like dizzy, and then so the lethargic sections of the song are kind of like when Penny's recovering.
Right.
But anyway, this is gonna be a great song live on the next tour too.
Yeah. This was one of those songs where, another one of those ones where the mix turned out great on this song. One of those ones where I was like, what? The mix just fell into place. But one of those tunes Trav brings, I don't even remember what the original seed was, but I was like, this is not a song. What am I supposed to do with this? What? But then it just turned out to be this crazy. I don't even know how he came to this song. Yeah, this was one that was just not all the way written at all, and I was like, dude, you can help me out here. But we added a bunch of stuff, and it turned out to be a really cool recorded song. I don't know that we'll ever play this one live, but it's a really cool song. Yeah,
we should because I really like the verses.
I think you told me though that this wasn't possible live somehow.
Well, no, what's not possible is the panning thing that I was talking about. Okay. But there's nothing other than that that's not possible. I just thought maybe those parts would be too boring live. The
like you should run to each side of the stage, like so visually you're going left and then right and then left.
Like if this was a Steve Vai production, which again that part kind of like a throwback to some Steve Vai kind of ways that he would do things. If it was a Steve Vai production, he would play one, Mike Keneally would play the other. He would play the next high one, and Mike Keneally would play the next high one. So it would be a 2-guitar song, right?
All right.
But I do love the verses of this, and I do love the violin harmonies with the guitar.
Yeah. There's some really beautiful melodic moments in this song. Yeah.
And the acoustic guitar is very overlooked. There's a bunch of acoustic guitar underneath those verses, the slower parts, and one of the things about this song, which didn't feel done to you when you were talking about the demo, is the reason those are interesting is the dynamic changes. Some of them are more full throttle band and some of them are very sparse. And that was in my head, but it wasn't as obvious on the demo, I think. So there's a part where it's full on electric and it's the same melody, but then the next time it comes around, it comes way down to where it's just acoustic guitar and the melody.
Right.
And those kind of parts are the ones where that's what makes it interesting. It's the way it's played, not what's played.
Right.
So I think on the demo, that's why you were listening to it going, there's 2 parts to this song. It's not a song. It's not done,
Yeah, it's all a dynamic. This is definitely a dynamic, layered. You can't tell when you're just presenting parts. Like, it's not all here, but yes, when you get down to the layering and the dynamics and all of that stuff, there could be just 2 parts, but it depends on how you lay it all out. So yeah.
All right, one more tune.
Well, does Dale have anything to say about Canine 360?
Not a ton. This is one of those songs. I told you about how I was spending a bunch of time too much on these super hard songs, and I was racing to get to the other songs before we were scheduled to track drums, and this was one I was like, I'll leave that one for last, and I'll figure that out. And then I came to it with a few days, and I was like, what's going on here? It seemed easy on the demo, and then it was one of those songs I just started writing out, so I'll play what seems right. But I still sort of thought I was missing something. Like it didn't 100% make sense to me. And then just barely in time, I started understanding like what was going on, and that I didn't have to overthink this one.
I do remember that, where you saved that one to last because you thought, oh yeah, I got that one. And then when we hit it, you were like, I don't understand what's happening. And you were all freaked out about it. And I do remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't like too challenging or something. I just didn't feel like I had a grasp of what was happening. And then, but then it sort of.
It's a trippy, it's a weird little tune. It's cool though. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really something different.
Right. Those are my only thoughts.
And this would have been my least favorite song on the album, and kind of what we call a B-side, but because the verses came out so nice, I actually really like it.
Yeah, I do too.
It's kind of like, as far as where it is on the spectrum of songs, I shouldn't even say things like that, but the where it is in my liking category, maybe like along with something like No Fate.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a song that it's fun to play live, and like with No Fate, like it's a good high energy song and people like it, but it's not like something that it's like it's a fun part of the package. But if you had to play a song on the Tonight Show, that wouldn't be the one,
Probably not.
But I really do dig the verses of this enough to say that, yeah, maybe it would be worth doing someday, because the verses are really cool.
Yeah, they are.
So,
well, even all the other stuff, the wah wah wah. I mean, it's a cool song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there's a guitar solo in it or anything like that, or if it's just melody. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and listen to the whole thing.
Over the
right. There's this spacey. Yeah, it's more of a David Gilmour type thing. You're right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the part where Penny was recovering from spinning.
Yeah, there's a lot to this song. There's a lot of ironically parts, but it's derivative of the original two parts. So
Kevin says it's most definitely a stage song, so we'll have to consider it. Werner says K9 360 is his second favorite TLB Doggy song.
We write lots of doggy songs, it would seem.
All right, ready? Should we move on?
Yep.
Last song, Taking Place.
Oh, yeah.
So that I'll just say that was originally the opening song of the tour, the original Annika tour, and then it became the final song of every night of the tour. And there's a pretty good bootleg on YouTube of us playing that in Canada at that huge place. Somebody shot it from the balcony.
Yeah.
And there was a place where we were almost in the round. The audience was on both sides of us and in front of us, not behind us, but it felt really like that was like a really packed show. Like it felt like the most packed show of the tour. And there's a cool version of that. I remember playing that. And when Jen and I do those breakdowns in the middle, I remember like coming out of that, like that's one of those moments where you get chills and you want to do the rock and roll point, like the whole place just like, so that was I really dig playing that song live. That was one of those ones that was tricky in the studio, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and it came out as one of the strongest live songs, but not a good opening song because it's too mid-tempo.
Mm-hmm.
but we thought it would be an opening song because it's got the long intro. It's got the kind of, this is the song, by the way, when we talk about Peter Gabriel, the song itself sounds nothing like Peter Gabriel, but that intro effect was like very much, that was where we were trying to do like some Peter Gabriel influence. Again, specifically, let's make something that sounds weird and trippy like Peter Gabriel.
Yep.
But the song is nothing like that. The song is very much kind of a straight ahead, big, trudging rocker.
Surprisingly, for a song with so much production, I almost feel like this is a stronger song live. When I listen to it on the album, I can sort of appreciate how much more energy it can have live. But I love the album version too.
Right.
That song just makes me miss playing live with you guys right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Like, oh wow.
Yeah, it's I remember that was also a good X Jam. There's a lot of bootleg of that out there. There's a X Jam video of that as well.
Sure.
And I remember at the X Jam, not last January, but the one before, there's a video of that. And I ended up, so Keneally, every time we play with Keneally, he's got the whole keyboard rig. And at the last X Jam, this didn't happen because we had a discussion about it. But the crew tends to not make decisions because they're afraid to, push boundaries and stuff. But they don't realize, Mike and I love each other. All I had to do was walk up to Mike and say, would it be okay if we moved your keyboards?
Right.
And everybody was worried about like, well, I don't know. This is where everybody goes. So anyway, the point is that on the first, was it M3 Live or whatever at that, the first, it was actually the second X Jam, but the first one in the big hall, with all those guys, I was way on the outside. I was as far stage right as you could get. And then Keneally's whole keyboard rig, and then monitors in the middle for all the other bands that had like front guys. And then Jen was as far stage left with her rig. And so for the unison section in that, I have to switch a sound, on my pedal board. My pedal board is literally 25 feet from like where we would get together to do that. So I'm literally running to get to you to do that, do that bit. And then to get back, I'm just like, it's like I was judging how much time is it going to be for me to get back to my pedal board after we finish this. And I'm trying to concentrate and not screw the lick up. And we're doing this intricate, unison thing. And I'm thinking, a bar, 2 bars. How long am I going to need? Because I got to get back over there to hit that effect before I get to, because it gets back into distortion. It's a clean section and then it's distorted again. And I somewhere on video, you see me just like bail, like right in the middle of it. I'm just like running while I'm playing this bit.
Yeah, I found a picture of that awesome Montreal venue. Would you like to see it? Remember that?
Oh, sure. Hang on. Let me blow you up.
Let's see if I can. It's going to glare, but that was a cool venue, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's probably.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. No, that's pretty good. That works pretty good.
Yeah, that was a great venue. And Canada crowd's awesome.
Yeah, Canada is awesome.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Canada. Anyway, so that was, absolutely like that song became the closer, because for some reason the big trudging heavy song just seemed to work. Like we would do maybe like a crazy fast song and then have one more song, but this song is so epic that by the end of it you feel triumphant. It's a triumphant song.
Yep.
And so I think that's the vibe that made it a good closer.
Yeah, and it has sort of a mini show vibe where it has intensity and then it has a mellow part and then it peaks, and so it's like a whole journey in a song.
Yeah. But and also just an interesting side note that the record, the intro, the kind of Peter Gabriel-esque keyboard effect intro, we made twice as long of a version of that for the live version. And it was really complicated to do that because we didn't plan that ahead of time. We have a version that loops in a certain way, and it's got a delay on it that causes the delay to bounce around. And so you couldn't just chop it and make it longer. And
Right.
so it was really tricky for me to make a version that was like 60 seconds long versus like a couple of bars or whatever to do the live version. But you got to have the long intro, because that's the only chance Jen and I get to change instruments and tune. And
Right. Yeah.
so if ever there's a keyboard effect intro, you make it as long as possible so that we have a moment to do something on stage.
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, that's one of my favorite songs to play for sure. And I remember also the guitar tones on the staccato parts were really experimental. I wasn't really sure about those, and it was a lot to make those work in the mix. Like, I feel like I kind of screwed the pooch on them, and then Kip and I made them like functional again.
Right. Okay.
And then live, I just used my dirty tone. But on the record, it was tricky to make that. I was trying to go with this really edgy, thin sound and multi-track it a bunch of times, and it was almost too thin and edgy. So I like it. Jen yawned and then she froze.
Oh, sorry.
So there you go. Anything more on the Annika record that we want to discuss before we go?
Nope, under 3 hours.
What?
I said under 3 hours.
Yeah, well, this we'll see if it's the record, because on all these long ones, we've ended just about now. It's been really close.
Yeah. Hey, my phone died, so I don't have an instrument to play on the hour.
Well,
You got a book or something?
Well, I have a container of
candy.
yeah.
Can you do the fanfare for the Common Man Shuffle on it? Oh, yeah, there you go. So thank you for listening, everybody. This is our second to last regularly scheduled Outside the End with Travis Larson Band. We're out of records to talk about. Next week, we are going to get together one last time to celebrate the new year, and we are going to go to work on this next album. We will occasionally check in, probably. We'll let you guys know when that's going to happen. We also maybe have occasional performance live streams like I've been doing from the treehouse. We'll see how much of that doesn't interfere with working on the new album, but we need to actually get serious and start working on stuff. We do have support Travis Larson Band links in the description. Jen's laughing because Dale's looking for instruments, right?
Dale's just like, what?
He's like, well, is this a good instrument?
How does this sound?
So thank you for watching, everybody. That's Annika. And we will be checking in with you next Saturday. Merry Christmas. I hope everybody had a good holiday. Everybody be safe. Be safe on New Year's Eve, which is this coming Thursday. And we will see you guys next Saturday, the day after New Year's Day.